Hello, hello, and welcome to Climbing Sideways, our weird little show where we ask anyone and everyone, what do you do and how did you get there? I'm your host, Adriana de Cervantes. A quick update on our first live show taking place at the Doylestown Bookshop on Friday, October 2nd at 6 p.m. It is a free event. The registration link is live, and you can find it in today's show notes. Our guest today is debut independent author Marissa Germain. Her novel, It's Always Mango Season, is out now. Set in Orlando, Florida, the novel follows Saskia and Paul, who are caught in a will they won't they. They have a criminal enterprise hot on their heels, and they're dealing with the aftermath of the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. In today's episode, Marissa shares her journey from a career in foreign aid to going all in on her writing. All right, let's get to it. Here's my chat with Marissa. Okay. Hi. Hello.
Hi.
We made it through. We made it here.
Yes, we made it here.
Huge thank you for being here with me today. I will share with our listeners that you and I don't know each other. I have been, reaching out to people via Threads and or Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. So you and I are not complete strangers at this point, but, we're stepping into this conversation, not knowing each other super well. And I think that, that kind of makes it fun.
I agree.
I'm doing this with a combination of people who I do know really, really well, and I understand their work, and I know a lot about their journey, versus people who I'm like, I know nothing, but let's dive in. So huge thank you for being here today. And do you want to just briefly share why you're excited to come on the show and what you're most excited to share and put out in the world?
Absolutely. And thank you also so much for your patience through this whole process, because I can only imagine how difficult it is to deliver and pull together this kind of podcast, right? And this kind of piece in this work, because I think often people underestimate how much work goes into these things, because you just don't know it until you're in it. And I'm so glad we got to connect on Threads. And I, at the time, was, and probably still am, looking for opportunities to share about this book that I wrote. It's been like 6 years in the making, while I've also had to deal with a lot of career shifts. I started out my career working in foreign aid, and it is through that experience, plus my family's experience of living and being from Haiti, that informed the book that I am releasing in a week.
So exciting. So exciting. And the time warp of it all. We're talking now on April 26th. Your book will be coming out in a week. I don't know when this episode is going to come out. So
okay.
Apologies in advance, both to you and people who are listening to this, for the time warp of it all. But we are here to help generate buzz for the book. And I did go and find my way to an ARC copy. And I was so excited to be like, I'm going to at least read a little bit of it before we talk. My week also went completely sideways. So I have not done that yet, but I will read it before this episode comes out.
Yeah.
So with that, let's dive in.
Wonderful.
Tell me what you wanted to be when you were a kid.
Ooh. It changed on the regular. It would sometimes be an actress, like a Hollywood actress, because I thought that was fantastic. And I may have had a spell where I was I wanted to be president, but mostly I think I just wanted to have fun, act, and play in that realm.
Those are at such diametrically opposed places on the spectrum. And I love that you're I'm going to either be a movie star or the leader of the free world.
Listen, I don't do anything halfway.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Okay. So tell me more about what you were interested in when you were young. What kind of things were you doing? Were you doing theater? Were you doing plays? Were you doing debate team?
So I'll say, I think my central conflict as a kid is I wanted to do everything, try everything. And it is in the trying of all the things that I would be able to figure out what specifically I wanted to do, if I wanted to do one thing only. So growing up, I tried out with soccer, I did dance, I did musical theater up until the 8th grade. And then come high school, I was like, all right, it's time to get serious. So I did like newspaper. And when I went to college, that's when I got into student government. That's when I started to go more into like politics and such. And I went to a liberal arts school intentionally so that I could have a variety of skills and not just become uber specialized in one thing, but like be able to know a little bit about science, a little bit about history, a little bit about economics. I did like improv theater as an elective and like played tennis for my physical education requirement, and also organized my gen ed so I could go to Australia for study abroad. So I now thinking about it, I think throughout my entire life, I've always looked for ways to like maximize the experience because we're only here once, right? So it is exhausting and it certainly is taxing, but that's kind of, I guess now that I think about it, that's really how I've chosen to organize life. It's just like, how can we squeeze the most out of life as possible with what we have?
Yeah. And that's such a fun way to approach it. It's just like dabbling in all of these different things and all of these different interests. One follow-up question about the high school years before we move into the college thing. You talked about doing newspaper, and you are a writer now. What did you do the newspaper because you were interested in writing and that was an outlet for that? Or did doing it sort of like make you realize that you were good at it and foster a love of it? And then like, how long between doing newspaper in high school and being an adult did you realize that like writing is this thing for you?
So as the daughter of immigrants, I think that either my parents were explicit about this or I was picking it up from our community or something. But I consistently felt this inner friction of like wanting to do the fun, creative thing, but also looking for the practical thing. So if I'm honest, I feel like I've like been playing around with writing throughout my entire life. I think writing in the creative space has always been an outlet, but never something that I considered doing as like something serious. So I think in high school, when I went to go after newspaper, I was like, this is the most practical way to write and the most practical way to, really use this creative skill in a way that's productive and has like, a real job path. And then the more I dug into it, this was about the time that like newspapers were struggling, right? And like they were starting to experience a decline. And so out of a practical choice, I was like, I don't think journalism is ultimately where I'm going to go. Let me look into doing international affairs and international relations and doing more policy-oriented things.
Cool. So where did you go to undergrad?
I went to Rollins College. It's a little liberal arts school in Orlando, Florida.
I know Rollins.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, a couple of people that I went to high school with ended up there.
Huh.
And you're in the sort of like Delaware, Maryland, Virginia area now. Is that where you grew up?
No, I grew up in Orlando, Florida. When I graduated from college, I'm looking around Orlando. I'm trying to figure out how do I get to realizing my dreams while still staying connected to family. I think I had always wanted to stay close to family, but also wanted to be abroad. So then I went to grad school at the University of Pittsburgh because there was a part of me that's like, I want something very, very different, especially if I'm going to just end up back here at some point. I love Pittsburgh. I loved the experience. And then graduating in 2009, when everything was just really complicated, grad school was like the nice, natural progression of how to develop this career.
So what did you go to grad school for?
I went to grad school and got my master's in international development and then a certificate in Latin American studies because I loved being able to travel to Haiti, loved thinking about these bigger questions of like, how do you help a society be successful? And is it government? Is it economics? Is it education? Is it healthcare? And a lot of the interviews that I had, like informal coffee chats and informal interviews I had done with people involved in development, had shared that you either go the Peace Corps route or you go into grad school, or you get actual experience. So trying to get like a job in DC right out of college, I don't know how much it's changed now, but you essentially needed someone to bankroll your unpaid internships in DC for a year or two before you could land a job. And my family was not in a position to do that. So I figured if I go to grad school, then I don't have to do the unpaid internship route. I could just probably get a job not long after that. And my uncle was really the inspiration for all of this because he is a UN consultant. So he did statistics and traveled the world and, measured the impact of the UN's investment in a variety of things. Same with the World Bank. So he was kind of the mentor and motivator for me to go in this direction. And then I had also visited Pittsburgh for this like leadership conference thing. And so I was completely sold on Pittsburgh or going into any of the grad schools in DC. Didn't get in anywhere in DC, but got into the University of Pittsburgh, got my master's degree. It was a fantastic time. And then I had the wonderful timing of graduating in 2012, which you may not remember was a really bad time for government hiring. There was a lot of hiring freezes, because it was all the conflict around whether or not to pass the Affordable Care Act. And so there were government shutdowns, there were threats to government contracts. And so all of the people who would hire, new staff kind of put hiring freezes as well until things made sense politically. And that should have been a signal of what was to come. But, I'm I'm young and optimistic that everything will work out as it should. So, yeah. So I 2009, everything's challenging. Get into Pitt, move to Pitt, get my degree. While I'm there, I was lucky enough to get a State Department internship and lived in Chile for a couple months, which was phenomenal. But also reinforced that I didn't want to be like in such a rigid environment. I wanted to have the freedom to be able to, have a job that allowed me to make a difference in the world, that allowed me to travel, that, was interesting and challenging, but also gave me space and room to, do other things and invest in my other interests. And so when I was doing that internship in Chile was at a really critical time for Santiago because the college students had gone on strike and pretty much shut down the country because they were raising the tuition for the students. Their tuition was like $5,000 a year. And they were so concerned because they were going to be getting into serious debt upon graduation. And I was like, if only, like, we could never do a general strike like that in the US. We could, but we aren't as motivated. And it just the entire time I was there, I was like, why are we not protesting? Like, we were all like, so many of us are graduating with like, 5-figure, 6-figure student loan debt to go after these careers. And like, they're taking on like $20,000 of student loan debt and they have shut down the country. Like, this is wild. And also like, the conversation around millennials then were like, we're selfish, we're, self-motivated, we don't care about anyone but ourselves. So I had started writing a blog called The Millennial Takeover that was interviewing millennials who've started interesting things and we're doing things that were more than just a job and just very selfish, right? Like, so there were people I met who had started nonprofits that were helping like governments get access to solutions that were environmentally friendly or green. Others who had started businesses that were addressing like data analytics education.
And you're writing this blog about millennials doing this work while you're working.
100%. Yes.
So the theme remains of like, you're just like, I just want to be doing all of the things.
Yes. Well, I think because ultimately, if we're going to be honest, I think ultimately, like many people, I would love to just be doing the creative stuff. But even in this very recent season of being entirely creative, there's a part of me that always comes back to like wanting to do something that has like a positive social impact and like that operates within this bigger framework.
But this could be a whole side tangent, but those two things are not mutually exclusive.
Yes, but up until now, it hasn't been abundantly clear how to do that and how to do those two things together. And, you don't from what I had seen at that time, like the only people who were able to really invest in their writing or do creative pursuits, like had wealthy parents who could cover costs for them for a period of time, right? Or they worked in tech and like had huge budgets and savings.
That was the example that you were seeing sort of like out in the world?
Correct, yeah.
Because I'm reading, I just finished last night, Bloodchild by Octavia Butler. I've read a bunch of her other stuff, but I hadn't read any of her short story work. And there are 2 extra essays at the end. And, you know, obviously she was working all kinds of jobs to be able to afford her life. But she really challenges this idea that the art isn't also the resistance. And like she's writing things that are giving people this ability to completely and totally imagine a wildly different future while also like, you know, criticizing where we're at. So, yeah, I'll find the name of the essay and I'll give it to you. But this like, I mean, I'm also out here doing 11 different things at any given time. I'm just also reminding you that the writing and the creativity and like all of this stuff, for a plethora of different reasons, we all need to rest. We all need to, you know, have that creative outlet and share and blah, blah, blah. And that it's not mutually exclusive from the resistance work that we're doing. It's like all a part of it.
100%. And I think, you know, I acknowledge that I put like a lot of pressure on myself to do everything to like the edge of a thing, right? Like to not do it halfway or to do it a little bit. Because I think like the big challenge for me was figuring out how do I pay my bills while also doing creative work now that I have these student loans, right? And now that I have to, you know, I'm now approaching like at that point, approaching my late 20s, early 30s. I'm having a great time in adventuring. And so my perspective was always have the full-time job that's stable and then do the arts as much as you can on the side. But then also you need to have time to like live and have friends and go out and meet people and, you know, do stupid stuff on the weekend, right? Because that's like the color of life that makes it fun.
And that's the stuff that inspires you to go make the work.
Correct.
Go to the movies, go walk to a museum, go walk, like, you know, you have to, you know, I had this boss for a while who talked about like, you have to have the right inputs if you want to have good outputs.
Yeah. Some of the college students I interacted with at one point, they were just so intense on, this is the framework that I wrote up when I was 18 and I need to follow it until I die. And that is what will give me certainty and safety in complex and evolving times. And I feel like throughout my life that has been helpful, right? It's a good grounding force to make sure that I have like a marketable skill set and a job. However, putting that at the center of everything at the expense of all else and believing that that will be the thing that will sustain you and fulfill you it's not true, right? And it's also a whole personal journey to sort out like what's a hobby and what's something that you're actually really good at that you can pay the bills with.
Yeah. That's the whole ethos of the show.
Yeah.
Truly. Okay. So you finished grad school. You were working in the government, right? You're doing government work.
Well, okay. So when I graduated, another fun period of time of like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I applied to a whole bunch of jobs. Nothing's coming back. What have I done wrong? How do I get out of this? And so at the end of that summer, I get a job at a nonprofit in Pittsburgh. And I am there, and it's out of alignment. It's not what I wanted to do. I specifically in my mind had decided I never wanted to work for a small nonprofit. I didn't want to work in education. I wanted to do economic development. I wanted to do agriculture. I wanted to be on that blurry line between government policy advocacy and like economics and business, because I think there's something really magical that happens when the two actually work together and are in service of one another. So it's 2012. I've graduated, had these experiences. Jobs are hard to come by because the government's not functioning. I work at this nonprofit. It's not exactly what I wanted. So I'm approaching the 1-year mark, and an opportunity comes up to go to my uncle's place in Haiti and look for work. Because I was like, this is what I want to do. I got my master's in this. Working at this nonprofit is out of alignment. This isn't it. So I go and live at my uncle's place for a month, trying to find work. So I got an opportunity to work with a friend of his that he helped me land. And it was working for a U.S. organization that was doing work in Haiti, that was doing, so you know how like when you go to Whole Foods, there was a time you could get mangoes that came from Haiti?
I did not know that.
Yeah. I had a great sense of pride that you could get Haitian products at like a mainstream store, right?
But you worked for the company in Haiti that helped get said produce to the distributors that got it to Whole Foods.
Correct. And so because when products are being imported into the U.S., there are a whole bunch of regulations and rules and things that normally are in play for a variety of reasons. One, to protect American-made goods. Two, to protect American people so that, we're not bringing in produce or any products that could harm the American people unintentionally.
It's like an entire industry, isn't it?
It is a whole industry making sure that the things that we're consuming are actually good for us and are not going to kill us or hurt us or harm us or make us ill. And if something like that happens, that they're able to trace it, identify it, and fix it, whether that's happening domestically or internationally. So the organization I was working with Haitian mangoes. They were also doing like access to loans for Haitian businesses to help them overcome capital challenges, because the U.S. is I don't think this is how it works in most of the world, but in the U.S., you know how you can just you don't even need to go to the bank anymore. Like you can just go online, apply for a credit card, and boom, you have like access to $50,000, whether you can actually pay it back or not. In Haiti, you had to have the assets to match the loan. So in the event you couldn't pay back the loan, they're like, here is my house, the car, the goats, all of these things to make that the bank could take to balance out the loan. And that is, it is helpful because the bank is never really fully at risk for lending money out, but it also keeps a lot of people out of the market. So you could
the barrier is super high.
Super, super high. So you could be a really enterprising Haitian entrepreneur who has this dream, but you may not be able to actually realize it because you don't have access to the funds to do it. As opposed to in the US, that's one of our... it's an advantage. So USAID funded projects used to provide funding and help banks overcome those obstacles to help those entrepreneurs get those funds so they could create products that we eventually in the US could consume and enjoy, in addition to all the other things that we get to consume and enjoy. And so working there was really informative. It was super helpful. I got a lot of good finance and budgeting perspectives. And admittedly, those types of roles also helped me figure out how to run a business and how to do that successfully in all sorts of circumstances. So I'm in Haiti for a year. I have this very beautiful experience of being able to see the context of where my parents came from, right? Because as once they left left Haiti, I only got to see their childhood home in moments when we would visit as a family. I didn't get to just spend the weekend, every weekend at the house that my dad grew up in, because that's where my aunt lived until I lived in Haiti. I didn't get to see the real dynamics between my aunts, uncles, and grandmother over a period of time and get the understanding of oh, this is why my mother has this perspective, or this is why my mother thinks this way, or this is, how my dad got into this interest or that interest.
Yeah, it's the difference between vacation mode and everyday life.
Yeah. And but even I think when we are living and when we have kids, if your kids are so far away from your family, whether we like it or not, you're going to miss the nuances and the details.
Yeah.
And this is not a judgment on, I choose to live across the country from my parents for whatever reason. There's no judgment there. Right. But, there's something that gets missed as your kids are growing up and understanding who their parents are, because the parents are kind of existing out of context.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all like themes that I ended up kind of rolling into the book of like, who is the main character? Who are her parents? How does this layered experience all influence how things are playing out? So I was in Haiti for a year, and I got lucky because the experience was amazing. I traveled to places that like even my parents had never visited. And I left right before things started to get really spicy and uncertain in Haiti. Not even 6 months after I left, cousins started to like leave the country and like go to other places to build their lives because it was just getting too unsafe. So I come back to the US after that amazing experience. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do development. That was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had to hustle. And there was another fork in the road moment where I could have like gone to work in an event space in Miami and like done like, event coordination, or take a job managing a project in Afghanistan, and I'd be based in DC. So I wasn't ready to give up on my foreign aid career just yet. So I moved to DC and managed this agricultural project that was supporting farmers in Kabul and the Ministry of Agriculture. And it was it was frustrating work, but it was really great. And this was before where we are now. And it really deepened my appreciation for the military, for our State Department folks, for the good parts of the work that we were doing abroad. But it also, was also very eye-opening in getting to travel and visit. My perspective before I went was if you go to Kabul, upon arrival, you're going to get like shot and bombed at. That was not what happened at all. The scarier things were the earthquakes rather than like, is the Taliban around every corner?
Yeah.
And then after that trip, I came back to the DC, moved to other projects. And so that's kind of how my whole career ended up starting. So then I like worked on a project in Mali and Cameroon, and I didn't travel nearly as much as a lot of my colleagues. But I don't know. I was like, wait a second. I was avoiding working on contracts and sitting at an office. And here I am without a law degree, sitting in an office reviewing contracts. And I had been like, low key building out this, the blog, and I had the itch of like learning startups and businesses. And so then while I was working, I was like, okay, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? Do I really want to be the director of this particular office at this particular organization? And I was like, I'm not entirely sure. So off I went to go like learn about other things. And that's when I was learning about like social impact businesses, where that brought together like running healthy, profit-driven businesses that were also focused on like their social impact. And the book, I wasn't even really thinking about the book at this time. I was trying to make progress on the blog, but then like life got in the way, right? I was making friends. I was involved in activities, and I just like didn't, to take a Sunday to write all day was not nearly as fun as like, going to boozy brunch with my roommates.
DC does have some really good boozy brunches too.
Yeah. Yes. It's been a while since I've done a boozy brunch, but like the DC food scene, if you know where to go, unmatched.
Okay. So when did you start writing the book?
So I was going through my career. I got embedded at USAID for a time. And after like getting a view into the highest levels of what my career could be in international development, I realized I really wanted to build kind of like a verified LinkedIn that would serve the developing world to help the Marriotts, the Best Westerns, the Coca-Colas of the world be able to go into other countries and hire people with confidence so that they could know that do basically background and employment checks so that when like American companies went abroad, they were hiring people with, like, they knew that they weren't hiring criminals or, former like Taliban leaders or anything like that, and could do it safely. So December 2019, I was like, this is what I'm going to build. This is where my life is going to be. I'm able to like start a tech company that's also going to be doing this social good thing. And then January 2020, I've got like my little bridge job at Georgetown.
You worked at Georgetown?
Yeah, for a little bit as like an office manager.
Cool. That's where I went to grad school.
It's a great place. It's a really great community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So early 2020, you're building a tech platform.
And so like I made it. I got my like bridge job. It's going to cover my bills. I sit down at the desk to start working on the business plan while I'm waiting for someone to ask me to do something. And I start writing the book instead.
That's kind of perfect. Yeah. Your brain was like, now is the time. Now I'm ready.
But my like head and heart, my head was very much not on board. I was like, no, we're here to build a business. We've got to like do something practical. But I'll work on this cute little thing to pass the time. It's not serious. I'm not going to take it seriously. And then as COVID wore on, right? Because like a couple months later, I took my computer from the office and I was like, well, I'll be back in a month. And I wasn't. So I was writing short stories and working on the book while also building the business, while also doing whatever, the Georgetown office asked me to do. And I looked at the writing as like a way to decompress from the stresses of being in a pandemic. And one of my roommates is a video guy, a huge cinephile. And like we were watching all sorts of really crazy and weird and wonderful movies. But he introduced me to the Alfred Hitchcock TV series. And I was like, I think I need to learn how to write short stories to practice writing tension. So I wrote a series of short stories and I got all my, friends to like get into it. And I was like, could I pivot this employment verification company into being a self-published author?
So then how long did it take you to like accept that you were writing a novel?
After it took me years, like it took me a long time to accept that I was writing a novel. Because again, like, I don't know, I think the fear of failing, the fear of investing in something that I had no formal training in, right? Like I did not believe I could ever write anything as good as like John Green or Octavia Butler or Barbara Kingsolver or Judy Blume, these like prolific authors who, got MFAs or did the Iowa workshop. I was like, I can't write anything like that. That's not who I am or what I am, supposedly.
Well, challenge that for sure. But then also, are you seeking out workshops, retreats, anywhere that you can go and craft and get feedback from other writers and really like hone that process? Because I think that's really where people gain a lot of confidence, is to like be in community with other writers and, get better and better and better.
Yeah, I really, unfortunately or fortunately, at that time, I was so preoccupied with surviving. I was like, I'm not going to pay X amount of dollars to join this particular group. Like real life is also happening. And I'm like, I want to take this writing thing, but Georgetown doesn't pay me enough. And my consulting is a little bit mid, in terms of like money that's coming in there. I'm also in my 30s at this point. And I'm like, I'm tired. Like I'm not here to like, I would like to be able to feel settled. And so I left DC, went to Orlando with, the novel just kind of like being my de-stressing activity. And then when I'm in Orlando, I like leave Georgetown, start to look for more settled employment while also still working on this book. And then it's not until I am working as director of operations for this online company that did like, adult education, and they start to fracture and fall apart, that I was like, I have been working on this book for so long. Let me actually give myself a chance. So it took me like really having my back against the wall and no other cards to play. I'm like, I'm I'm going to focus on this book because the feedback I'm getting from friends is that this is actually really interesting. Every time I try to, figure something else out, this book has been the constant. So there comes a point where the company I'm working for breaks apart. And I was like, you know what? We're going to focus and we're going to finish this book, start to finish. And I'll also acknowledge that I then realized that's why so many people have books that they never publish, because what it actually takes is being able to be actually focused, have not just like 2 or 3 weeks, but like at least 3 to 6 months to just be really in the zone, every day focused and dedicated to how do I put this story together? How do I introduce the right language at this point so that the reader feels this way, that I have connected this plot point to that plot point so that no one gets lost or confused. And I was fortunate enough, or unfortunate, that there was a family matter that needed to be dealt with in 2023. So my mom and I went to Haiti for the night to go deal with that. And I think not even a couple of weeks after that, they stopped doing commercial flights to the country. And it was kind of like the last piece of the puzzle to really like finish the book and go over the finish line.
You were conducting extra research there? You like wanted a little bit of extra color, info, context?
Honestly, I wasn't even really there. I was more at like, our family had gotten embroiled in conflict over the inheritance left by my grandmother. And the only way to resolve it required my mom to travel to the country. And my mom was terrified. Like, she hadn't been to the country since right before COVID. The stories and the news that we were receiving were, nightmare fuel, which is a pretty consistent theme about being Haitian, is that like every 5 years, you're just like, I can't listen to what's happening over there because I won't sleep. Mm-hmm. So my mom was too terrified. Her family is like frustrated because this issue can't get resolved. And I was like, well, I'm not working and I've been to a conflict country. So let me go with my mom to Haiti to help wrap this thing up. And while I'm there, I'll just like observe and kind of just, actually, I don't even think I was thinking about the book then. I really was just focused on like, I'm tired of hearing about this family drama. Let's solve it. Let's get it done. Mm-hmm. And this is my, wheelhouse. I know how to do this. And so, so we went, we did it. And then when I came back, it was hugely activating. Because I would be lying if I didn't say that, working in development left its impact and its scars and some PTSD associated with, sitting with your mortality for extended periods of time. Mm-hmm. And so writing in the book, using the book to analyze all the different levels of how this experience really forms our bonds, informs our identity, started to happen then. And so once I finished it and got a solid beginning, middle, and end, and not like a cute 50-page outline or like a sort of story, but like a real beginning, middle, and end to the book, I then worked with the developmental editor who gave me feedback. And her feedback was critical because that's when I was clear that I actually have I'm not a bad writer and that I can actually write books. And so then that's I think when I finally took it seriously. Like, I took the big risk in investing in a developmental editor, a professional who understood, who knows the work. And that investment was critical in getting the book over the finish line and to where it is now.
Yeah. Which is like a week away from coming out.
Yep. And so on the surface, the book is about this character, Saskia, who is Haitian American, who, her life and her career fell apart. So she goes home to kind of recalibrate. And while she's there, she reconnects with this guy that she has seen on her family trips to Haiti, who's kind of like they're friends and they're like a will they won't they sort of deal. And he is meant to represent all of the Haitians who choose to stay in country and like actually move it forward despite all of its circumstances. And while they're kind of reconnecting and trying to figure out their stuff, the earthquake in Haiti happens, and his family dynamics and their connection to a criminal enterprise, they close in on the pair and they have to kind of deal with that. It is a series. So book 1 takes place in Orlando. Book 2 will take place in Haiti. I thought it was going to all be one book. And then the more I went into like revisions, the more I was like, no, this needs to be 2. We need to have the time to like really dig into this, because there are a lot of competing themes, right? There's like the romance element. There are best friend dynamics that are informing their relationship. I reflect on the parent relationship between Saskia and her parents, and then also how Paul and his father and that relationship as they're running a family business. And, you know, some of the gains and the losses of immigrants, and like the costs that the immigrants pay, the costs that their children pay, but then also the beauty that comes from all of that too. I wanted to write something real. I wanted to write something for my nieces and for all of the Haitians who may never visit the country because of the long list of reasons why they won't. And also just kind of, you know, write a love letter to my hometown and to a country, Haiti, that is just always in the news and always dealing with stuff.
Well, I really, really, really cannot wait to read it. I definitely will be emailing you viciously as soon as I get done. Because my biggest thing about being a reader is that I love the reading. I love that, you know, books take me someplace else. But really what I want is people to like talk about these characters with. So I will definitely let you know when I finish it. And I think that all-encompassing, you're not just touching on 1 or 2 themes, but that's what you've been saying this whole time. And I think that really speaks to who we are as human beings. We are not flat. We are not 2-dimensional. We are fully formed, complex creatures with a swath of interests and hobbies and all different kinds of people in our lives. And I love that you're writing something, that you have written something, that fully acknowledges that, right? Like, you know, it can be all of the things, and that doesn't make it too much. That's just how life is.
Yeah. And I feel like also when it comes to books about Haiti, at the time that I was writing this, there were not really a lot of books that were optimistic, that were hopeful, that were joyful, because we've just lived through so much. And it's, you know, easier to kind of excavate the pain and all of that. And I love light, fun beach reads. We love to just like, you know, toss that like, oh, they're, you know, they're light, they're not thought provoking. And there's certainly a place for that. But I feel like my community deserved a story that was meaty, that was multi-layered. And it's not just my community. As I was going through this, like speaking to other people whose parents are from elsewhere, or, you know, people who like see life and experience life in a multi-layered way and don't see it as just like flat A to B, there is no variance. And so I wanted to write a book that kind of captured all of those things and gave people an opportunity to feel that nuanced and multi-layered experience, and that it wasn't just going to be like, you know, something light and fluffy, because those are great, but that's not what I wanted to write.
Amazing. Well, that's a really beautiful note to leave people on.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to Climbing Sideways. You can find Marissa online at marissagermain.com, spelled MarissAGermain, or on Instagram at keepingitgermain. As always, infinite thanks to Zubin Hensler for all the mixing and original music for the show. If you're on Substack, follow us there, climbingsideways.substack.com. And of course, we're on Instagram and Threads at Climbing Sideways Pod. Please subscribe, share, and rate us a review. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another conversation. Thanks so much. Bye.